digital intelligence with foreign governments, and they also recently ruled in favor of Article 11 and 13, more broadly the EU Copyright Directive, with almost none of the amendments passing. And the people of the UK voted on Brexit over 2 years ago, with 52% of voters wanting to leave the EU. And I have a feeling if that vote happened again, those numbers would be a little bit different. Specifically, the Leave crowd would have a far larger percentage, especially now with this EU Copyright Directive. And Theresa May, who isn't coming from a particularly advantageous negotiating point, is pretty much running out of options. But it's all going to be okay, right? Because Britain is leaving the EU in March of 2019. I mean, surely Theresa May has put it into British law that the EU and UK have until then to come to terms on the split. But wait a second, okay? That doesn't mean that the terms of the split have to be what the people thought they were voting on. But yet, there is hope, because they've invoked Article 50 of the Treaty of Lisbon, which states that a member state can withdraw from the Union in accordance with their own constitutional requirements. So the only way that Brexit can't happen is if the European Council and the European Parliament agree that no agreement would mean no Brexit. Otherwise, if there's no agreement by next March, Britain is just gone from the EU with no real trade agreements set up. And this would be the equivalent of a fairly hard Brexit compared to May's proposed soft Brexit back in July. I mean, the only downside to this hard Brexit would be that they would have to negotiate any trading with EU nations through the EU. However, they're given the complete freedom to trade with the US, Canada, Japan, Russia, Australia, anyone not a member of the EU. And there's a Greek economist, academic, politician by the name of Yanis Varoufakis who said that neither Macron nor Merkel want Brexit to happen on their watch. So you can expect them to work to deny the UK a full exit. Varoufakis made the point that the only solution for May is a general election in which Theresa May walks away, and then the new government negotiates a Norway-style agreement for Britain for a 5-year period. As he says, this would give Merkel and Macron the ability to leave office without Brexit being on their record, but it would fail to actually remove the UK from the amount of bureaucracy and centralized power that they initially voted to leave. Now, when Varoufakis says that it would be a Norway-style deal, what he's referencing is the fact that Norway is a member of the European Free Trade Association, meaning Oslo is paying for access to the single market with Switzerland, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. Norway is also a member of the European Economic Area, which is extremely similar to the EU in the sense that it allows the free movement of people, goods, services, and capital. But anyone who watched May negotiate any of this will know how truly predictable and frivolous those negotiations were. I mean, even though I live in America, I've watched a fair amount of the footage of May discussing Brexit, especially the Chequers Agreement. And if I lived in the UK, I'd be livid. I mean, it's sad to see the people of the UK being treated like this and largely being denied what they voted for over 2 years ago. I mean, if you'll remember back, like I said, in mid-July of this year, Theresa May addressed concerns over a soft Brexit, in which she largely talked about keeping Britain in the EU, just less than it was before. So that's why a soft Brexit, it wouldn't be completely leaving the EU. And the EU sees this soft Brexit as a way basically for the UK to retain the privileges that accompany EU members without actually being in the Union. I mean, the EU is telling the UK that they need to allow the free movement of people if they're going to remain at all a part of the EU. And there were a lot of leavers who voted that way specifically over the free movement of people. I truly think that May thought she'd have a place to really kind of negotiate from. But after specifically Merkel and Macron are attempting to prevent it, this puts May in a really tough spot, and people closer to the situation are surprised that she even lasted the weekend. And as angry as people are with May, the thought of a new government negotiating a Norway-style deal is really not much better. I mean, the best thing that I think many of the leavers can hope for is for March 29th, 2019 to roll around without anything really being decided, so that Britain will have a hard Brexit. However, that's not a date that people will just let sneak up on them. So to prevent a hard Brexit, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they just throw some type of agreement together. So we'll have to see how Brexit negotiations continue, but I really don't have high hopes. I mean, even if there's another vote, it wouldn't entirely matter because, like I said, Article 50 has already been invoked. And only the European Council and the European Parliament can actually mutually stop Brexit. Otherwise, it's happening in some form or fashion. So that's really all for this Brexit update. Thank you guys